Welcome back to Believe in Badgers on the Believe Network, presented by Oak Bridge Wealth Management. And as of today, FanDuel Sports. We are super pumped to have FanDuel on board with us here at Believe in Badgers. It's a really exciting new partnership for us. We'll be talking to you more about that a little bit later on in the show. But of course, I today, and as always, am Matt Perkins, joined by Badger legend, the Hebrew Hammer himself, Matt Bernstein. Bernie, how are we doing today?
Dude, you see Instagram and we got pads on finally. We're at camp. Oh, man, Wisconsin football's back. If we win 0 games, I'm still excited for a season there, Jake. But as always, Matt Perkins, it's a holiday, baby. Every time we're on the podcast, it's a holiday.
It is a holiday, especially when we have one of our Mount Rushmore guests,
Aww.
Jake Kocorowski from the newly launched Badger Observer. Jake, it's always great to see you, but it's especially great to see you when you have a really awesome new endeavor that you just launched 2 days ago as we record this.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me. Like, you guys are my Mount Rushmore of favorite people just to talk to in general. Anytime I get a chance to chat with you guys, it's anytime you guys need me, you guys can pop me on and I will make time and whatnot. And Matt, I'm glad, Perkins, I'm glad you are feeling much better than what you were last week. So I am glad you are back on the mend, my friend. And no, I'm really excited for this new endeavor with Badger Observer. Going on my own, it's scary, it's exciting, it's nervous, it's anxiety ridden sometimes, but scared money don't make money, right? So that's where I'm rolling right now.
I'm sure our friends with FanDuel will tell you the exact same thing, that scared money don't make money. With our partnership with FanDuel, we've got access to all sorts of new fun lines and spreads and stuff like that. We'll be talking about that here in just a little bit. But I've got a question for you that at the end, Jake, remind me. But before we get into that, Jake, you've been down in Platteville at camp. They've been down, 2 practices now, 3 practices in, something like that so far, as we record here on a Wednesday afternoon. I guess we'll just start right at the top. Biggest takeaways you've seen so far, and what makes this team different than the 2024 squad that was underwhelming on almost every facet of the game?
Yeah, no, it really, first 2 practices, it started Tuesday, hot, sweltering. I wore one of those dad type of, what they call them, action hoodies that are like very low, but it was like long sleeve, and like I'm still sweating up a storm. This 240-pound frame does not deal well. Even though I love this weather, I will take it gladly over 20 degrees any day. And then it's a change of, it's been raining. I'm back here in Madison. It's pouring out here. It was raining down in Platteville for a good while. They still practiced outside, but some of the things. Talk about the things that's changed from last year to this year. You got to start with the offense, right? It's Jeff Grimes with that NFL style offense and just what he's doing compared to what Phil Longo had with the air raid, right? And you're seeing the run game. You're seeing different things that you expect out of an NFL style offense there's a heavy run emphasis. You're seeing the intermediate throws that was, for the most part, even though you saw Vinny Anthony make some deep plays last year, they were mostly missing from the air raid offense. So you're seeing that, I think, really stands out. And again, just as clarification too, was the first couple days, they're in spiders. And for those who don't know what spider pads are, they are glorified shoulder pads. They are smaller. You can't even call them shoulder.
They're like the cross pads.
Yeah, and they're kind of foamy. I think they are, and stuff like that. But so there is some physicality. You're seeing like Dylan Jones, or it's part of one of my takeaways after I talk with y'all, finishing them up, is like you're seeing Dylan Jones still run full speed ahead. You're still seeing guys. Mason Reiger made a nice play on a Trech Kekahuna run where he didn't let him get off the towards the edge, but part of that included basically tackling them. So there are some things that you see that are still physical. It's Luke Fickell's calling card is physicality. So, but it also is you gotta give some context to what you're seeing, because when they go I can say physicality takes up a step, even though fully padded is one thing because you have the pants on and all that stuff, but like even half pack with the shoulder pads, that's when you can really start seeing, you can be like, okay, you're fighting, you're in the trenches per se. That's when you can see the physicality ramp up more, and you can also get a better gauge of what exactly is going on.
these are warm up days. They're warm up with spider pads. I mean, they're technical. They're mental days. They are not physical. They're not what you're going to see on the field. You might see like from the coaching perspective what you'll see, but not from the player perspective, which is fine because you got to warm up. You can't just go full pack like right off the bat. You'd be nuts. Jake, tell us can you go over like what camp looks like or what is like the
Yeah, I mean, the big thing what they're doing is, first off, it's that night, the lovely hour and 5-minute drive I have to make down to Platteville, which, by the way, going down like US 151, I think it is, or whatever it is, down to Platteville. I love that drive. I like driving. I mean, it's from my old days as a indie wrestler back in the day. I enjoy making trips like that. They're not that long for me, and I just pop on a good podcast like the dad I am, and I roll from there. So once you get there, you go into the stadium. I mean, the music's blaring. They're getting ready. They'll have their warm up period. Where they're stretching and kind of they're warming up. Then they do the stretching, and then they get into their independent position periods where they're going with their position groups and working through that. They could do special teams here and there. Then they get into teamwork, 11 on 11 period for a bit. They go to Skelly, and then, the linemen are doing something else, and they have breaks in between, but they go back to teamwork for the majority of the rest of the practice. There are some breaks, sometimes there may be special teams. This is like it could be fall camp, could also be, it's almost synonymous with spring ball too, because that's kind of how they, you've seen things too. So, so that's kind of how it goes. And today's practice went, with a little bit shorter compared to Mondays. But that's, I don't know how they scripted it. So that's not saying that was, that was odd or anything, but yeah, so it was a good, hour and granted it was about hour 45-minute practice today, and they got done what they got done and went from there.
But so what do they have lunch? Then they have, you're talking about you're only practicing once a week, once a day now, a lot of meetings.
Yeah. I remember when I was at Badger Extra, right? Like it, part of it is, I did a series just on the snacks. So there are snacks everywhere, folks. And there's stuff to keep them hydrated. I think, I have to ask Sophie Palmer and the nutritionist, chief nutritionist there. I remember her telling me, like, I think it was 400 to 500 Uncrustables a day. So there's food involved throughout the. I mean, they have meals. I remember, going and checking out the Platteville. Platteville's got a great meal set up for them. I think that's a real key for Wisconsin. I mean, they have the, training table at UW too, and they have that, now in the south end where the south end zone is, and that's good. But it's also, you have, like in Platteville, I mean, they're away, but they're in these little, dorms, but this food is top notch. I saw them deliver it. I watched them for an article for Badger Extra last year, but there's meetings throughout the day. There's other things. I'm sure there's some. I know they're talking about some of the assistants. On Monday during local media day talked about. I think Mike Tressel was talking about kind of building more rapport. So I'm sure there's going to be stuff like that. I don't have their full schedules, but but there's a lot going on. But it's also trying to get to bed at a decent hour because they're up at talked to John Richter briefly, said hi to him, who's the director. I think he's the director of operations, I think that's his exact title. But he told me, I'm like, so what time, what time you guys getting to get these guys up? And it was like 6:30. So it was, so they're up very early, and it's
early. 6:30? That's not early.
I went to high school football camp was harder.
Yeah. Okay. But they're all jam packed. There's so much going on during the day. And yeah, as a dad, I'm up by like 5:30 anyway.
No, now I'm up even earlier, which is as a dad. I'm trying to remember, and I can't remember, but I think wake up was like 6. It was like breakfast, tape, and you were on the field at like 7:30, which is crazy. But I'm just confused because I know the rules have changed. But what do you do in the afternoon? You have a lot of hours to have you can't have 6-hour meetings. We used to have 2 practices.
Right.
Like, what do you do? What's the rapport? I mean, I'm not
exactly sure what else they do. I know, like I said, I know it's a lot of.
This isn't a knock against them because no team can do two-a-days. So
right.
It's a rule. But I just don't know what you do at football camp when you're not, like, you're eating, practicing, or in meetings. working out. I don't know. I'm trying to that Jake. I would love to know what that is. Maybe when you talk to somebody, I would love to hear. What
no. I know that's actually a very good, that's an idea for a story that I'll try to get up during.
What do you do from 1 o'clock until 9 o'clock or 10? 10 was lights out for us.
Yeah.
So what do you do? And also, I don't know what they have. I would love to know. We had no AC, no TV, no cell phones. I mean, if you didn't bring a fan, you were. I mean,
those dorms have AC, if I'm not mistaken.
Man, life is good. Already, I would go to camp. I do 3 days there if I had AC at night.
No, I mean, these are all, it's also I remember, I think Daryl Peterson during local media day said he was bringing a fan. Because still, though, they may have AC, but it may not be.
Sure.
Dorm
AC. Yeah.
Right. It can't, yeah, exactly. Which, by the way, I would take dorm AC because being a former UW student back in the early 2000s on the 8th floor of Chadbourne, there were some hot days that I'm never going back to that.
Well, Jake, one of my biggest questions coming into camp, and I think it's the biggest question for a lot of Badger fans, is how is this offensive line going to look after the injury to Kevin Haywood, the presumptive starter at left tackle, who's now going to be out for most of, if not the entire year? What has the first team offensive line looked like? Because there are 3 guys on there that are pretty set in stone, and Joe Brunner, Jake Renfro, and Riley Mahlman. Mahlman at right tackle, obviously, Renfro at center. Brunner now is someone who could be moved around a little bit, but in the first 2 practices, who and what have we seen out of this offensive line unit?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at with the first team offensive line, you're looking at Davis Heinzen has gotten the first team reps both days so far at left tackle. Central Michigan transfer came in after spring ball. He has experience. He started, I think I thought there's one stat saying 36 consecutive games.
Yeah, he started the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, but he also worked at left tackle and left guard. Listed him at 6'5", 311, so not as tall as a Riley Mahlman, who's 6'8"-ish, or a Jack Nelson that was 6'6", 6'7"-ish. But there was he did give up a sack earlier this today, but he's looked okay. I haven't outside of that it's. Yeah, it's again, I'm always hedging because you're looking at the simple fact that until they put shoulder pads on and they see, I want to see more of just how he works that way. But then you going from left tackle to, right tackle, there's Joe Brunner at left guard, who, like you said, he can swing out. He swung out towards the end of last spring. He got some reps that way the year prior as well. And then you also have, Jake Renfro, who's a mainstay there. Emerson Mandel, the redshirt freshman, was in right guard during, yesterday during the first practice, and you saw him there again for first team reps today. But also Kerry Kadenko started to work in the 6th year, the graduate offensive lineman who came to Wisconsin, I believe, as a walk on. He's now in, he got some first team reps towards within practice today too. So and then you have Riley Mahlman at right tackle, who's, I would not move. I think he's got a home there.
Absolutely not.
I think, he could be the best lineman they have this year.
I think Kerry Kadenko, per the media guide, apparently grew 2 inches in the offseason as well, from 6'2" to 6'4", which I thought was interesting. We all know how numbers can be a little bit fudged with the media guides every year. But to me, that was something that I thought was interesting to note, because obviously, though, this offense now, we're expected to see a run-first offense. And so I would imagine, especially, we talked with John Stocco a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about how everything is built around the wide zone. I think we're going to see a lot of wide zone to the right this year. I think they're going to try to follow that Renfro, Mandel, and Mahlman sort of combination there on the right-hand side to really push the ball, on the offensive side of the ball. But with that, you've got a lot of young backs, plus Cade Yakimelli. How are they going to divvy up these touches? Because we know in the press conference, Jeff Grimes has said before, in an ideal world, he would have 2 backs, right? But they've got at least 3, and if you want to count Jackson Aker, 4 guys who deserve touches.
Yeah, and I mean, from what I heard about it, I was just checking my email to make sure of it. Apparently, according to Wisconsin spokesperson Brady Collins, the director of football strength and conditioning, told me that he there was another round of measurements that he did. So maybe, you never know. I mean, most of those times, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know how outdated those heights could be, but that's a different story.
Gaining 2 inches at age 23, 24. That's something.
Well, also depends on like when the last time they were actually measured is the other thing. So you never know. But I will say when you have with the running back room, I mean we've seen Dylan Jones, we've seen Cade Yakimelli, and we've seen Darion Dupree all get first team reps during the spring, and I think they all provide something a little different. I think that's great. And the thing is, I had this conversation too with Ryan Herrings. I think it was yesterday, and talking about how with the backs, you need 3 backs. I feel because they could have 2, but there's always injuries. Look at 2023, right, where you had Isaac Guerendo. Let's say Isaac Guerendo stays at Louisville, right, or doesn't go to Louisville. You have that. Braylon Allen gets dinged up, especially during the Ohio State game. Ches Moussi was lost for the year, and that did provide opportunities for Jackson Aker and for Cade Yakimelli to grow more. But you're also looking at I thought Isaac Guerendo would have been perfect for that air raid offense. What he could do, catching the ball and running it. That being said, I digress. He's obviously made a great choice because now he's with the 49ers and has an NFL career. But we also seen at Wisconsin, right? 2010, you needed John Clay. You needed James White. You needed a Monte Ball who emerged later in the year. And so, we also seen it. We've seen it to lesser extents in 2013 where you had James White, Melvin Gordon, Corey Clement popped up on that radar. But I think with Wisconsin, with what they want to do with the wide zone, you need to have 3, running backs. And, Dylan Jones, I think, I think he looks good in this role. I think he's physical. He can run between the tackles. I think he's decisive and getting downhill, especially with wide zone in terms of picking your points of which way you want to go within this scheme. You look at Darion Dupree. I know our friend Brian Calhoun is very high on Darion Dupree. When I talked to him in the winter, after his tweets, I was like, "Oh, what makes you so?" And he talked about being like an all-purpose type of back, kind of being, And I think Dupree has that. I think, he caught a pass out of the backfield today during practice, and I looked at one of the reporters in the press box. I'm like, he should be catching 25 balls a year. I said 30 to 35 at first. My buddy's like, are you sure about that? Because, how much are they actually going to run or pass the ball? I'm like, fair. But, Dupree, he can run, but he can also make plays in the pass game, which I think could be huge. And you can use him around the field. Like he was at Chicago Mount Carmel. I know that it's a prestigious Illinois high school. I know it's not, that's not college, but I do feel he could be used, in multiple ways in this offense. And I'm kind of excited to see that, just because you see what his potential was and what he did at Mount Carmel. But Yakimelli, that guy, he's got speed, and he's jacked. And he has this ability, the ability to make plays. You saw it on the 55-yard run during the spring scrimmage in April. And, so I think, it's a good problem to have. And I know that Jeff Grimes had talked about it because he was asked about it on Monday, just talking about the running backs. But, he said the more you have at the position, the harder it can get for coaches. And he said the twofold is you have to plan. And within that plan, there has to be organization and efficiency within how you use the players, what type of groupings, and making sure, basically, just making sure everything's run right. But also the second part is making sure they all get the reps that they need and deserve. And so, it's to be honest, it's a good problem to have for Grimes and for running backs coach Devin Spalding, because if they run it the way they can, and like I say, on top of that, with what they can do with Trech Kekahuna or Tyrell Henry as wide receivers in the run game or others, there's a lot of possibilities with this group, and there's a lot of ways to keep defenses off kilter, not just with the running backs, but the wide receivers too.
Well, we've seen you need multiple running backs in this day and age. Guys aren't carrying the rock 30, 35 times. You need 3-4 guys, and it's nice to have a guy like Jackson Aker who can kind of be a dual. You're going to get reps. You've taken reps. You know what you're doing, but you're going to play fullback. So is the fullback back, Jake?
I think, they don't want us talking about scheme at all during practices, so I'm gonna defer on that. I mean, I think you will see Jackson Aker with the ball in his hands one way or another. I think that's the best way to talk about it. I think there will be ways for him, both receiving and running the ball, to be an impact. You know, he's not your prototypical Wisconsin tight end. He is more of that fullback. You know, Tyler Jancey fits that mold now because he moved from linebacker to tight end, technically tight end. But, you know, you look at his stature and it does remind you of like what Aker is doing. And by the way, Tyler Jancey was a pretty decent running back at Batavia High School in Illinois, as a senior. And so that's, you know, so yeah, I think there's a lot. I think, there's, you know, I think Aker can get the ball, and I think he is an athlete. I know that, you know, he can be a bruiser, you know, he's listed around 250, or is it 247 right now? But yeah, man, like he is an athlete though. He has some speed on him. He has a track background from high school, I think, if I'm not mistaken, right?
State champion discus thrower.
Yeah. So, you know, so there's
power. State record holder at one point when he,
you know, who else was in state discus thrower?
Matt Bernstein.
Well, Joe Thomas, not Matt Bernstein. We got crushed. Ron Dane.
Oh, there you go.
I forgot about that.
The Dane train. Okay. Well, I love talking about the running backs. We could do it all day. I could literally sit here all day with you guys. I think the most important position that has become for us, and I think around college, pretty much every team in the world plays football, is the QB. If you don't have a competent QB, we've seen our teams, they are tough. It's tough to win games without a competent QB. Talk to us about what you've seen from all those guys. Who's starting? Who's coming out? The first two. What have you heard? What are you seeing? Is it a competition? Like, I'm so intrigued by the constant influx of new guys. It's hard to know them. You know, you're sitting around the ground level, so I would love to hear more about your views on the quarterback situation.
I mean, Billy Edwards looks the part. I really like what he's done so far.
Not the stash, though.
What, the stash? Yeah, I'm not sure about the stash. I mean, I'm not sure about, I have a goatee. I thought maybe I could do the handlebar on mine. You know, I can just curl it up. I don't know, maybe this isn't as great as
it looks good.
Thank you. I'm trying. I forgot the
mustache.
I apologize, boys.
Look, I haven't. Matt Perkins hasn't shaved. He looks like a model, a GQ model.
You do. I think it's the hair flow. Look at that thing.
Flowing like the nice.
I was just thinking today that I need to get a haircut. So
that's why I'm wearing this hat. I'm waiting a couple of weeks on my end, folks. But it's I'm waiting till summer. If I book the recruiting trip, I'm hoping to for Badger Observer. And then I'll make sure I do that when I'm anyways, that's I'll tease that for later. But you also have with the quarterbacks, Billy, he is the first starter, hands down. And it's, the way there's little things he does. And I know a lot of people want to talk about leadership, but there's small things that stand out where he's, getting the team in a huddle, before the first, before a series, getting them kind of talking to them all, going from there. And then from there, if you guys hear my dog in the background, that's my dog. So I apologize because my dog apparently
mine's barking too, so don't even worry about it.
Okay, sounds good. But from there, you're seeing Billy really work. He has the arm strength. He can make. He's hitting throws. Every quarterback's gonna have incompletions, whether they're a little wide or whatnot. And this is practice too, where they're able to work through this stuff. But he's also had some balls on the money. He had one to Jaden Ballard today where if a defender doesn't screw up Jaden Ballard's eye of sight, it doesn't bounce off his helmet, where he threw it deep and he threw it where it needed to be. And even yesterday, he's making throws to the sideline that you look at Ricardo Holman, oh man, he could pick that off. Well, Billy has the arm strength and the placement where he threw it where, Vinny Anthony made the catch on the left sideline. And then kind of come back and there's another throw where he threw it and it was, Ballard caught it yesterday. And again, Holman almost had it, but it was, a good throw and Ballard made the play to reel in the pass before Holman could get his hands on it. So he's able to make certain throws. We haven't really, I would say I haven't really seen the run game from him, but we know from Maryland that he knows how to, run the ball and be physical that way too. Going to Danny O'Neill, thought he had a good practice today, and he had probably arguably the play of the day offensively, where he aired it out to Joe Griffin Jr. I think it was during Skelly period. For those who don't know, it's 7-on-7 basically. And Joe Griffin Jr. just went up and dove and made a diving catch. And so you like what Danny O'Neil brings, because with him, like, there's a mobility. I feel like Billy has that mobility, but I think you see a little bit more out of Danny O'Neil where he can create some things. I remember the spring game, him doing a little move or spring practice scrimmage and making a little move and creating a little bit more time for a pass to be completed. Kind of a backyardish type of run. He's kind of scooting around and all of a sudden he's able to dump it off. And that, went for a decent gain there. I think you can see that out of Danny. I think his mobility will be huge too. Hunter Simmons, I still want to watch a little bit more, a couple more practices before I give a full opinion on. He's from Southern Illinois, and it'll be interesting to see just how he continues to acclimate, because if they're looking for competition for the backup spot, he has starting experience in the FCS, but Danny O'Neil also has he's been there at Wisconsin longer. And I think he's probably a little bit more comfortable, so that's something to watch there. I like this group of quarterbacks for this type of offense, and it's not. It's something too where with Wisconsin, with this type of offense, I think it suits who they have in that, in that quarterback room right now.
Awesome. Well, before we get into the defensive side of the ball, which I want to talk about, especially along the defensive line, because as Bernie and I have well documented here, there were some issues stopping the run last year. But we want to remind everyone that we continue to be proudly presented by Chris Anicetti and his entire team over at Oak Ridge Wealth Management. They do one thing, and that is take care of NCAA athletes. They know just how hard athletes train to be their best on the field. And so they're making sure that they are also winning off the field. At Oak Ridge Wealth Management, they don't just handle your money, they handle your entire financial world, from building a rock-solid financial plan tailored for athletes to paying bills, budgeting, setting up LLCs, securing financing for cars, equipment, and whatever else you need so you can focus on your game. Chris Anicetti and his team at Oak Ridge Wealth Management are the place to go. If you are a current NCAA athlete with NIL deals, a parent of an NCAA athlete with NIL deals, Chris and his team are the people you need to get in touch with to get your money right. Your career is short. Make every dollar count. Oak Ridge Wealth Management, where athletes build lasting wealth. Get in touch with Chris on Instagram at Oakbridge_WM_Anicetti. That's Oakbridge WM_ANICETE, or head on over to the website, oakridgewealthmgmt.com. Chris Anicetti, Oak Ridge Wealth Management, our main man who is making sure that a lot of these Badgers are getting their money right. And if you are a defensive lineman, you're probably getting some decent NIL money, because if you're not a quarterback, that's the second highest paid position in all of college football, in the transfer portal, in the NIL market. And there's a lot of new faces on that defensive line, Jake, this year. We got, JVR Suggs, Parker Peterson, my namesake, Charles Perkins. If you expand it out to the jumbo edges, I guess, as we're talking them, you already mentioned Mason Rieger. You've got who's our man? Corey Walker coming in from Western Michigan. And Taron Turner, like all sorts of different guys coming in on the front six of this defense. Who has stood out, and what are you seeing out of this defensive line in the first couple sessions of fall ball?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at, you talk about Charles Perkins, and, there's to me, one, you're talking about in looking at the roster, I re-verified, there's 8 defensive linemen now. Will all 8 of them play? Probably not, but there are 8 defensive linemen that are 300 pounds or heavier right now. So I think that's key. So you have bigger and bodies that are in the middle, which can help. And so I think that's big. But I think, from what I've seen so far, the first couple of practices, you're seeing, interchangeably with first team reps at the defensive line with, you have, Charles Perkins, you have Ben Barton, Parker Peterson, and JVR Suggs, and all of them, JVR Suggs is the lightest and at a listed 299 right now. And so, and it goes up to Ben Barton, who's 325, and Charles Perkins jumped up 7 pounds to 323. So you have these guys, so you have bigger, and they're also, it's not just like wider guys, right? These are taller guys too. Ben Barton, 6'5", I think Charles Perkins might be the shortest, quote unquote, at 6'2". And so, you've seen like Suggs get in the backfield here, and you've seen Perkins get in the backfield. early on. It's a good to have where I'm high on Charles Burgess. I think he might be the most underrated transfer pickup, where you have from the FCS level, working
definitely got the biggest personality. I'll tell you that much.
Right, which we all love as media members because they're the you talk to them and they'll give it like you hope they give it to you straight and they're but they also like have a great personality and then you roll from there. But so I think the defensive line there, but I think there's like six, there's other guys too, like Dylan Johnson. I didn't mention Dylan Johnson, but I'm very high on Dylan Johnson, who's around 313 pounds. And so, yeah, you have those and there could be six guys. It could be Brandon Lane up in there too. We'll see what Jamel Howard Jr. can do as well. But so you have those guys, and then they have now the outside linebackers. They call for like Corey Walker and for Michael Gardner, and there's all but then you have the outside linebackers, other outside linebackers too that are one's got his hand in the dirt in Daryl Peterson. Right, where he's more hand to the ground now, but he was able to get some pressure today during practice, and I mean that's a big thing. I mean I was talking on a radio show yesterday, and going like, well, who's going to get pressure off the edge? Well, that's a question, right? Peterson possibly could. I think it's going to help with the interior line where they could like if the interior line gets pressure, it's going to open up stuff off the edge more. Tyrese Fearbry, I think. The Kentucky transfer, looked the part during the spring. Mason Reiger today, again, it's only spiders, but he had, a would-be sack, a couple of would-be TFLs that I had in my book, and a couple of other pressures today during practice. And I think, Reiger's gone through so much with his injury history, and it's not starting off even his Wisconsin career off great with, missing opportunities during spring ball due to off-season surgery. But you're looking at I think with Wisconsin, I think it's a deep group for the outside linebackers, and in terms of just who could possibly play now. But the question is going to be, last year they had 17 sacks. That was among, I think, look at NCAA.com, but working on my article, that was like 120th in terms of sacks per game. It's one of the worst that Wisconsin has had, if not the worst, based on some of the research I did on Wisconsin's archives, going back to when they started dating sacks, and calling them a stat. Now, I know some people just say, well, stats don't really count. It should be havoc plays or pressures. Well, they need to get pressures going. They need to create plays for that, because it also didn't happen for interceptions, right? They didn't have many forced fumbles. They didn't have many interceptions last year. And so that pressure leads to that, can lead to mistakes like that. So, but you hope that someone like Reiger, who did have success in 2023 at Louisville with 5 sacks and I think it was 6 tackles for loss, that he could provide something in a rotation. And we'll see, I haven't seen too much out of Nick Clayton yet, who I know had a stellar spring. And he's bumped up to 240, but he could be another pass rushing guy. But even looking in the front, guys, in terms of linebackers real quick, Tackett Curtis and Christian Allegro look like they're going to be the starters. It's still, they've been getting all first team reps. I'm not saying they are going to be. I feel like they're getting the vast majority of first team reps, and they're starting caliber. But then Antaron Turner, I really like what he can bring. He came from FCS Western Carolina. I think the question with the linebacker group is who's going to be that fourth inside linebacker. I think that is
there's a couple of freshmen who are competing for that. Cooper Catalano, we know, had a big spring, and we've heard a lot of coaches talk about him and just having any notes for the ball. Mason Posa, probably the biggest recruiting win for the team in the 2025 cycle. I think is someone who, could be there as well.
Right. And that's where I'm in my head. I feel like I think Catalano could be a dark horse for that spot, because they did move Jancy over to the tight end room, and Mike Trussell talked about it during media day on Monday, saying how he started seeing Catalano have the nose for the ball that he had in high school. And so that's, and the thing with Catalano and, our friend Joel Nellis, Bernie, played against him because they're in the same greater metro conference here in the state. It's one of those things where, Joel's seen it, but you see a kid that can go sideline to sideline. He can make plays. And that's why Germantown never really used him to blitz much, because he could cover the span of the field so well. And I'm not going to say effortlessly, it takes effort, but he was smooth in the way he could move. And so, I think, the spring obviously helped them there. So yeah, but let me say, like I said, Wisconsin also wanted to say like these guys are going to be the starters. I will say, Tackett Curtis and Christian Allegro are getting first team reps, and I think both could be in line to have big years.
Dude, is there a media like packet that you have like rules during this time?
Yeah, there are. I mean, and we respect them too. It's like, it's one thing too. Like, I think there's some good calls. Like, so for those that don't know, and this is going behind the curtain for you guys, it's, which I love these. I actually love talking because it also helps explain things. So if you wonder why we're not marking like, Billy Edwards Jr. was 8 of 19 for 60 yards and 1 touchdown and 15 interceptions, which did not happen, by the way. I'm just throwing out stats. I am saying, because there's not context behind them. I know I know JJ Watt had a tweet about this, I think late last week or early this week, talking about stats like that. There's no context. Are they, if you see a young kid like, oh yeah, Austin Kofensis is, I'm going to do a deep cut there. But, if you have stats for Austin Kofensis, but like, what's context? Like what is the context of like, okay, was this against the first team All-American at cornerback and Ricardo Holman? Or is this against someone,
a
true freshman walk-on, like, fourth team.
Right. And it's nothing, and there's no, there's no, disrespect towards anybody, but it's more a discussion of, like, hey, okay, what happened here? And also what type of period were they in? Were they in Skelly when there's no pass rush?
So there could be too much context is what it could be. It could be 9-on-7 periods 1 through 3, Skelly's 2s on defense. Like who's going to want to read that?
Right. And then on top of that, there's also, you're dealing with, other things when it comes to, like, I guess in my eyes with that stats is just, what type of situations are they being put in terms of, okay, it's this type of period. Well, is this only pass only? Or are they going to run it? Are they trying to, so you're trying to see like, okay, is this only a first down period? Is this a second down? You're trying to run first, only first downs or whatnot, and trying to do those type of packages. So yeah, everything is in there.
There's too much. No, I get that. I just think it's funny. Like you've been saying like, well, we're not really supposed to say who's the one. I mean, I find that there is value there, but also, I always think this, like we do all this secretive stuff. Like I was just in Wisconsin, you saw like you practice on the field and they have the ramp. And every time someone was up there, like stop practice, they blow a bolt, everyone stopped. They're like, get that, they were very colorful. Like, get that dude, see if he was filming. And I'm like, what is he filming? That's like the only thing he could take away from this is that we're going to run power 5 more times or 5 less. Like, so what I'm trying to say is like, I think it's important to be a little secretive now, but in game 1, that's out the door. Like we got to win these games. And if we don't win 1 and 2, we are in a heap of trouble. That's why I just love the media stuff because I think it's so fantastic and it's so interesting. But, game 1, play 1. Who's going out there to start. Right. But again, what I find is hard is you so many transfers, so many names that like maybe we're not hearing for the first time, but people are. How does a coach like Jake, in your opinion, how would you go again? Like, how would you coach against the Badgers right now?
Well, I mean, it's what you try to do is, I think, and I'm not a coordinator by any chance. I mean, I haven't bought the new college football 26 yet. I'm waiting on that for a little bit. I did get 25 last year. Love that game. I mean, it's also just, you're stressing one. If you're an offense, it's make them prove that they can stop the run. I mean, Mike Tressel talked about the fact that, he feels that they're going to be improved the most in stopping the run. Okay. Well,
they better be, because if they give up 329 yards to Iowa again, I think heads are really going to roll.
While I'm there, oh man, I'll be so sad if that happens.
I know. I mean, and during the last 5 games of last season, they allowed an average of 200.2 yards rushing per game and 12 total touchdowns during that time.
Listen, they were doing it during Western Michigan too. Jake, let me refine my question. I guess this might help. It might be the same question. I think in every facet of football last year there was a lot of concern, offense, defense, special teams. Nothing was perfect. Nothing was even kind of close to it. Are we going to see a different like, am I still gonna be concerned, or am I gonna look at the games and go, wow, we are much more improved?
I think the latter. I mean, the schedule's going to be hard to like. It's hard to judge at times because, third game of the year, you're going to Alabama. You have to play at Michigan. You have to, you host Iowa. That entire month of October is just nuts. Mm-hmm. And probably one of the toughest 4-game schedules of for any college football team this year. And then you have to go to Oregon, and then you have Iowa, or not Iowa. You have Iowa, but you also have Illinois, who still like is a dark horse CFP type of team right now. But you also it's
no gimmies.
Yeah, there are no gimmies, and I mean, but I think this team understands that, and I've always felt this, Bernie. I think you and I don't know if you agree with this, but Wisconsin being an underdog has always worked out better than being a favorite. So there's that underdog feel, that chip on the shoulder type feel. And I do feel like with this, I think it's mostly with this offense and the upgrades that they did on the defensive front that give me more of that confidence. I'd feel even better if Nizer Forkurin didn't have his preliminary injunction overturned on appeal, but I know that they're trying to get the NCAA to look at it again. But it's going to be very interesting to see just how that plays out. But I mean, I think the offense, it's an NFL style offense. I think it's going to be better than what was seen last year. I think there's going to be more variety. I think there's more ways to keep the defenses on their toes. Defensively, I think they're stouter. I think they have some moving parts that can really help, both, outside linebacker, defensive line, but also, like I said, I really like Tackett Curtis and Christian Allegro at inside linebacker. Love Ricardo Hallman. I thought he's had a good first 2 days. And I do like the safeties. I know they lost Hunter Wooler, but Preston Zachman can find the ball, and Austin Brown is an athletic type of freak where he ran like a 4.40, and he's, I think he squatted around 500 pounds during Squat Fest, if I'm not mistaken. So, so there's stuff like that. So, so there are pieces there, but I do feel they could be better. The thing is, it's one of the, and I hate using it with the eye test type of stuff, but I think it will be more, depending with this schedule, it will be, okay, can they hang with Alabama more? Can they, in Tuscaloosa, can they hold, can they beat potentially a young quarterback at Michigan, right? In the big house? What can they do? Can they stop Iowa's rushing attack? Because Iowa, and we'll see just what Iowa can do with Mark Gronowski from South Dakota State and their revamped offense underneath Tim Lester. But, and can they also break through Iowa's defense for some plays? Can they bully Iowa, which you haven't really seen in recent years? So that's all kind of, those are the questions that you best. I think where the offense is laid out and what they can do with this offense in the wide zone scheme, and marry that with the play action and downfield passing, I think is better. I think the defense is in a much better spot than it was last year, especially with the depth at defensive line. But now it's time, it's something that I said on the Badger Extra podcast back in January. I called it the prove it defense. And that's for the entire team, proving it, and going out on the field, and you can do all you can do against your guys with the same jersey color, right? But now it's, hey, all right, what about Miami, Ohio comes to Madison August 28th. I mean, we're less than a month away.
So great.
Yeah. When
are the pads going on? That's like when we need to talk.
Sure. It has to be I forgot the exact ruling on it. I have to get back to you on that, but it'll be a bit. So, and they practice
because it was like the 5th practice, but now you can only do one a day. Something weird.
I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, it'll be a little bit. I wouldn't expect, until, I wouldn't expect it for a little bit. So, but yeah, it'll be fun when it does, because that's when you see the physicality kind of rise. And I can guarantee you that there's supposed to be some cooler weather this week. Might warm back up next week, but you know how it goes. You're there at the center.
The weather never mattered.
It never mattered.
Dude, Barry gave us ice pops on a hot day one time. It was super hot. We got ice pops. What do you mean one ice pop? And he stopped the clock. So we didn't miss practice for an ice pop. We just took we took a 5-minute break, and then you started the clock up again for an ice pop, I would have been like, dude, we don't need this ice pop. Like, it didn't make me happy. It's like a company giving you pizza.
Yeah.
Like, guys, that's not gonna cut it. I mean, listen, practice. I know that times have changed. It's been 20 years, right? That's right, 20 years, or 25 when I first got there. From when it was like the most ruthless 2 days in a row, and Wednesdays and Saturdays were full contact 3-hour scrimmages. Oof. But again, then you compete with every team you're pretty much playing. I mean, it does elevate. People understand what's going on. I'm not saying we're not doing that. I think the rules have changed. You just can't do it now. But I am very interested, Jake, when those pads start cracking, man, that elevates every single aspect of football.
Yeah.
Well, Jake, before we talk a little bit more about Badger Observer, we've got a couple quick questions here from FanDuel here, our newest sponsor here. So I'm going to throw a couple lines at you here for a couple of these first games. Wisconsin opens the season August 28th at home, 4 weeks from now, as a 17.5-point favorite at home against Miami of Ohio. Jake, A, is that line right? And B, do you think the Badgers can cover it? They were good last year. Miami of Ohio was a good squad last year. A lot of new faces around Wisconsin.
That sounds like that's a really good line. Good.
These damn lines are so good.
They are so good. Yeah, I was gonna say. I think Miami, Ohio, and they also brought in. I mean, they have Daquan Finn, who came in from transferred back from Baylor, who was at Toledo before that, and so I would say I think the line's right, and I'm going to say they cover. I'll give them. I think I'll say 20-ish points. I think they could win by 20, 21. But I think it really depends. I mean, I think the one thing that they're going to try to do is just run the dang ball, right? And that's
why I'm taking the under.
Yeah,
because they're just going to run. That's what yeah.
Yeah, so Bernie, the over-under on that game is 40.5 points. So it sounds like you think that the combined total for the teams are going to be under 40 if they're going to be running a lot.
I mean, I think yes. It's the first game. Dude, I'm still convinced, like, you don't know what you got, no matter how much they don't practice enough anymore. There's too many transfers. There's too much things. You got new coaches. You don't know what team you have until like third, fourth game. That's what I'm saying for a team that has a lot of transfer people. Dude, let me just say I'm so impressed by you too. Like, there's so many transfers every single year. You both know them. You know where they were like their third time 3 schools ago. I can't even keep up with my second child's name. And you're like, yeah, that guy went to Toledo before he went to whatever. And he went to this place and he went to high school here. I just want to throw out shout out to you guys for just being so knowledgeable.
Thank you, Bertie. I
think the first games and the first and second game, everything under, everything low. I wouldn't bet that spread. I just want to take. I mean, I think we're going to run the football. I don't think we're going to try to score 21 points more than the other team. I think we're going to try to win the game. And I think you're going to see guys that are. It's a lot of new guys in a new jersey. It doesn't matter if you have experience. You're playing in a whole different place with new guys. Everything's new. To me, that's. I don't know, man. Like, when I think about it, like, Brandon Williams came on to play with, like, Jonathan Orr, who was there, Lee Evans, Darren Charles, who played already, like, guys with experience in the helmet, in the stadium, playing in the Big Ten. It's not like a dig at these dudes. It's just the landscape where we're at. So that's why I take the under. That was a long-winded. Listen, don't listen to me. I'm a loser when it comes to gambling. That's why I don't do it.
So fade Bernie's picks is really what we're saying. Last one, over under wins for the season. It's at 5.5 on FanDuel, but there's some juice there with the over at plus 140. If you want to go on the under, you got to lay a serious vig at minus 172 as of recording time. So Jake, over under 5.5 wins for the Badgers on the year.
I'm gonna go over. That's one of my bold predictions. I don't know how good my gut feelings are, boys. But this gut feeling, this tells me that, I don't know. I think with I think the offense is the big thing for them right now. And if they can, the offense has changed. And then with what they've done with the transfer portal, I mean, it's going to be hard with this schedule, right? This schedule is going to be very hard. But I think that, I think they go 3-1 September. I think they win at least one game in October. They need to win one game in October, and then you have to go and then face. There's wins. They're winnable games in November. Minnesota's always going to be tough on the road. Illinois will be tough. Then there's Indiana for the college football playoff participant there. What will they do? They did pick up a great transfer in Cal's Mendoza there, and then you have Washington at home. Washington at home is to me is a must win regardless for them. But I think, and who knows whatever happens with Ohio State coming up, at Camp Randall Stadium too, because that home game, and we'll see. I mean, obviously the receivers with Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, but they bring in a new quarterback, and we'll never know what type. But I do think, my bold prediction this year is that they make a bowl game. They make a bowl game, so that would be at 6 wins. That might be just over 5.5, but long story short, or long prediction short, I think right now, unless they're get back to me 3 weeks from now, when. Depending if whatever happens with during fall camp, but right now I'll say at least 6 wins.
If you don't win the first 2 games, you don't win 6 games. Right. So if you lose one of those, you're under, and there's just and yeah, that's all I'll say. I think it could be bad sledding if you start losing games early.
Well, if you want more of Jake's insights and his takes and his bold predictions, you got to be subscribing to Badger Observer. I am proudly subscriber number 1 to Badger Observer, and I am elated to be so. Jake, tell us a little bit more about this endeavor, what you're doing and why you're doing it, and what makes it a little bit different than everything out there around in the Badger Mediaverse.
Yeah, first off, thank you for this. For those who don't know, Matt's been there for, since I've started having this idea and working through my introductory essay, if you will, about my introduction to the Badger Observer. But it's just something where it's scary going on your own. I'm anxious. There is a lot, because you're not just a reporter, now you're a small business owner. And so I started Badger Observer. It launched Monday. It is the place to go for unique stories about Wisconsin football, Wisconsin recruiting, and Wisconsin volleyball. I'm hoping to add to the scope of the newsletter with possibly basketball and the hockey programs down the road, but also working with other supplemental types of income right now. I'm going to need some recharge, but my goal is to deliver great coverage for the Wisconsin faithful, have some unique stories. I think one thing, there's recruiting, and I've learned how to. Obviously, I've been covering recruiting since 2014 for a number of different publications, but it's also trying to go where others can't or don't have the resources for, and so that's part of it for me, is trying to go see recruits. I know there may be some recruiting fatigue with just how the transfer portal is, but it's still important. So, I'm still trying to get down to Florida, to Florida at the end of August to see a couple of recruits down there, and then trying to with the Michigan weekend, trying to catch 2 recruits that weekend on a Friday and a Sunday before driving back, which we'll see how that goes. And so, you're having to. I said scared money don't make money is my kind of adage right now, but it's true where you have to invest a little bit, and I'm willing to invest to get some of the best coverage, and also going out to I think. I'm going to Platteville for the next, every practice, and that's gas money, but it's also that gives you this authentic. It's authentic. This is real coverage. It's and something that I've covered this team since 2013, and I've seen this is the 3rd coaching regime that and whatnot, and I think there's still room for an adept, alternative voice. That I have way too many ideas in my head that I'm working through right now for ideas. So, hoping to talk, more volleyball coming up in the coming weeks, and working with Wisconsin on a few ideas. But it's very much football heavy now. And what's great though is it's one of those. It's a publication too that it's going to be about 3 to 4 newsletters a week during the season, because I think that's the best way to do it. Probably 4 to 5. But it's, right now I'm channeling through with each practice right now, my thoughts, getting it out there. But, I also want it to be, we have to get paid. I have 3 kids going to college. I have a mortgage or other things. Reporters need to get paid through subscriptions and not just through clicks. I also want information to be available to, consumers at a reasonable price. and there are a lot of competitors too. So, I priced it out where, for the first year, if you sign up this way for an annual subscription, it's only $50. It's just over $4 per, just over $4 per month. And that way it's $7 per a month or $69 a year otherwise. So you can always try it. If you like it. If you don't, you don't. It's fine. But like I said, $50 a year, cheaper, it's cost effective, and I think it's a mutually beneficial cost for both sides to still get great coverage on two really important Wisconsin athletic programs.
Absolutely. The volleyball team coverage has been really lacking. So I was really excited, Jake, when you and I started talking about this, when you brought this up to me back months ago. You said, I want to do this. I want to cover volleyball. I was like, yes, because Wisconsin volleyball, which we don't talk enough about on this show for sure, because we don't have the expertise. Getting in there and getting in with the people who have the expertise, that's awesome, because this is one of the foundational programs, one of the cornerstone programs of Wisconsin athletics in 2025. So make sure that you subscribe to Badger Observer. We will drop a link here in the show notes, on the YouTube description, however it is that you are consuming this show. We really appreciate it. Support the people who support us. Jake has been supporting us for day one. Go out there and support Jake. Like I said, $50 for the year. If you're getting 4 newsletters a week, I mean, you're talking about like 2 cents per newsletter. And I'll tell you one thing, Jake's thoughts are worth way more than 2 cents.
Oh.
So, it might be 2.5, but hey, that is, 25% more than 2.
Sure.
That being said, we're going to wrap up here today on Believe in Badgers, presented by Oak Ridge Wealth Management and FanDuel. It's crazy. We got FanDuel on board. This is fun. Make sure you're checking out Jake over on Badger Observer. We'll be back again next time. And, I guess we might as well tell people this now. With Badger Observer, Jake will now be on here with us every month. We're going to be having Jake on for monthly shows, monthly catch-ups, because like we said, he's a Mount Rushmore guest, and we can't get him back on enough. We love you, Jake. We love everything you're doing. We love all of you for tuning in here to Believe in Badgers. Until next time, on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.